What's up, everybody? Thomas here, coming at you with another video. Today we got something different going on. I am working on this 2015 Subaru Forester. This is my lady's car. Disclaimer, I hate Subarus, man. I hate working on them. I thought I liked Subarus, the WRXs, the STIs. Man, them shits were dope until you have one in your possession and you got a wrench on these things. Man, but you know, that's a whole nother video. Today we're covering something that is kind of rare, man. She was having issues with, she was saying her heater wasn't working. So, I go through the motions, checking up why her heater isn't working because it's getting cold in Florida. And it looked like, some of the fluids were low or something's going on. And I started peering around. And when I took off the cap, there was like an oily residue in there. And at that point, I thought, oh shit, head gasket gone. This is dunzo. Need a motor rebuild, something going on. So I was fearing the worst there. So I took this to my local mechanic, and just to verify, I had them run the test. And you know what? They ran the little head gasket tests, and they said, nah, man, it's not your head gasket. It's the oil cooler. So what the hell is an oil cooler on a Subaru? Well, on the side over here, and you'll see later on the videos, there's this little can, and this can runs CVT. The transmission oil goes through it, and also kind of like the heating system, the water system goes through, the radiator, the cooling system goes through there. And I'm guessing it helps either warm up or cool off the transmission oil depending on what environments you're in. But apparently those things could be faulty, and what happens is in that can there could be, like, I guess, a break somewhere within that can because it's all in one together. There could be a breach or something, and some of that oil gets into the cooling system. And I'm going to assume that it's probably getting into the transmission oil system too. So I'm going to have to probably check that out and change the oil on that. But anyways, man, I searched the internet, I searched the YouTubes, I searched the Googles, and dude, I could not find any videos on anyone replacing that thing, fixing that thing. I even looked at like the Subaru creators, and I didn't see shit except for some YouTube shorts where one lady was saying like, hey, I have this thing in my oil cooler, and they replaced it and it happened again, and it was the same symptoms. And then there was one where it sounds like some dude in Thai. He was like pop 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 saying whatever in his language. He was showing the residue there, and he came around and pointed to this oil cooler. So this might be the first video on YouTube explaining and showing the removal and install of this CVTF oil cooler thing. So yeah, guys, I'm kind of filming this intro after the fact. I've already installed it and done all that, and right now what I'm trying to do is run a coolant flush. So that'll be, something different. But this video is going to focus on replacing that CVTF cooler. So check out the description below. I'm going to have, the tools I used on there. I'm going to have links to the FSM that specifically shows this part, how to remove it. And I'm also going to have links to those two YouTube shorts that I have that kind of show, what was going on here. So yeah, let's get to it. So before I get into the voiceover section of this video, pretty much overview here, all I did was I disconnected the battery, drained the fluids here, and then I removed this air intake with some connectors that are underneath there and kind of moved them to the side. But yeah, you'll see that more in detail in the voiceover part. So yeah, I just wanted to give you this quick little overview on, the parts of the motor. But if you look over here, let me show you where it is. See that guy right there? See that thing right there? This dude. That is the oil cooler. Right here we got the battery. Use a 10 mil here to disconnect it. And that's pretty much it. So the next step is you want to drain the radiator. Pull off that cap. Get something underneath there to catch the fluids. And there's a little thing you screw off the radiator and just let it all empty out. So you're going to want to remove the air intake here to make some space to get to the brackets and whatnot underneath it. So there's part of the wiring harness you want to remove here. You pull that little lever and you pull those connectors off. Be careful of those guys because they could be brittle. Then also to make it more easy to move things around, there's a secondary bracket that I removed off of that top piece that's mounted to the top of the motor there. It's pretty easy. Just undo the bolts and get it away. So these are the hoses that are connected to the cooler here. You got two oil from the transmission and some coolant hoses from the water side. I marked the hoses 1, 2, 3, 4, as you can see on there, so I could remember where to put them. It's very important you remember and you put those things back the way they go. Right here, I'm kind of showing some of the hoses taken off. They're stuck on there pretty good. So what I use is a pair of channel locks, but I saw that there's actual pair of pliers you can get to loosen up these hoses and pull them out. So you want to do that carefully. Don't break the hoses. So what I was trying to demonstrate here is how I use the channel locks. Kind of gingerly grab the hose and wiggle it a little bit, because what it is, it's like the hose is kind of stuck to the metal. So if you wiggle a little bit with some clamps, it'll loosen up and they'll come right off. One thing I also didn't mention is, take the clamps off with the channel locks. And also, that oil cooler is only connected with 2 bolts. So to get to that last one, you're going to have to undo those bolts. You can get to the clamp, because the way they did it's kind of on the underside. So you cannot get to that last clamp with that oil cooler still mounted to the block. And just like that, magically, the hose is off. And here I'm kind of demonstrating, what it looked like when it was on there. But yeah, oil cooler removed. So here's a side-by-side of the new guy and the old guy. They look exactly the same, nothing fancy here. So, let's get this guy back on. So one of the first steps of reassembly is getting that middle hose on there, because you got to get that clamp on there and mount it to the block so you can do the other ones. So here is the oil cooler mounted to the block with the 2 bolts. And as you can see, I now have 2 hoses on it this time. Now all the hoses are on there and the clamps are on there. So this thing is pretty much replaced, and now to put everything else back. Now I'm clipping back the wiring harnesses there. One part I didn't show is that the wiring harness have a little bracket, and you undo that bracket to kind of get everything out of the way. So I bolted the bracket back into the motor, and now I'm in the way, and putting the wiring harness back on. Nothing fancy going on here, just put it all back. Remember guys, be careful with these harnesses and these clips. You don't want to break your shit. Now it's time to put this air intake manifold back in there. So yeah, it's 2 clamps, one at the throttle body up there and one down there by the air filter. Pretty self-explanatory. Just reverse order of how you took everything apart. So now that everything's put back together, since there was oil in the system, you're gonna want to flush that stuff out. So I went ahead and bought some radiator flush that I'm gonna put here, and I did it ghetto style, radiator flush, and water straight out the hose, son. That's probably not the approved way, but that's the way I'm doing it. And just to let you guys know, I had to do this a couple times to get that gunk out of the radiator. And here I am adding that hose water to the radiator system like a savage. Just to let you guys know, I follow instructions on that flush. And after I did the flush, I pretty much ran water right through the radiator, and I had to spray out all that leftover oil and crap. So guys, this is now the end of the video where I'm going to recap on everything and what's kind of gone on since I've completed this job. It's been about a week or 2. And so after the fluid flush, I learned that, or not I learned, but I saw that there's a lot of gunk still in the radiator. So I flushed it a couple times with water, just going through the motions of filling it up and, burping it and doing all that crap. And I also just stuck the hose right into the radiator and just and blasted water down in there, and a lot of gunk came out. And I did that until it was clear, no more gunk. And then I went ahead and put what am I talking about? I went ahead and put coolant in there, antifreeze, designed for the Subaru, did that. And because of fear of cross-contamination, I took the Subaru to get the CVT oil fluid changed at a shop. But man, I'll tell you what, if you can do that yourself, I'll probably do it myself next time. You're looking at over $300 to get someone to do that. Local shop, or even the Subaru dealer quoted $345 for that. Good Lord. But yeah, there's plenty of YouTube videos on changing out the CVT fluid. So if you're doing this job right here yourself, go ahead and knock out the CVT fluid stuff yourself too. Other than that, this job really was not that hard to replace that oil cooler. Is mostly just getting, the air intake and stuff out of the way so you can get to it. But I mean, other than that, this job was pretty simple, man. And, you know, I've been driving it for a week. She's been driving it for a week, and I'm not seeing any more oily residue in the fluid. So I think that portion is fixed. So yeah, man, hopefully this helps you out because I couldn't find any videos on this shit. And hopefully this will kind of give you a little guideline on how to do it. And that's pretty much all I got. Well, everybody, like always, thank you for watching. Peace.